Oh, there's the audio. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, now no mic. Mike, I don't know what's going on here. It's Anyways, what I was saying is I hope everybody's having a good morning. Mine was a little difficult. Uh, was in the shower. Wife came up. Was like, hey, Goof, one of our dogs isn't doing so well. Couldn't get up. He couldn't even stand. Um, they had to like feed him his food like sitting there in the bowl, and it's unfortunate. He's like a 13-year-old dog. He's been sick with cancer for, God, like 2 years now, and it just sucks. But it is what it is. It's part of life. He was a dog that I've had since college, so it's a little different than like a childhood dog, because like he was mine this whole time. But it's not looking too good for the guy. That's all right. It is what it is. But let's get down to why we're all here. So thanks for joining us. I'm sure some of you are excited to see what this is, what Quest House is. It's a brand new company that we started, live stream production company. We're based here out of Rochester. We got about like 4 shows right now that we're launching this week. So bear with us just a little bit, because this is a lot of our first streams and we're just kind of learning and figuring out how this will all work. I know we have 4 shows that we're launching with. So Mondays we got Fitness with Mr. Chris at noon. On Tuesdays we got Earl Grey and Real Estate. On Wednesdays at 8 we have Filthy Casual, which is actually a Magic the Gathering show where our host Dean is going to sit down with different guests from the community every week and just kind of dive into different Magic decks. I really don't know too much about Magic. God, I probably played when, I don't know, maybe like 20 years ago when I was like just a little kid, and I'm sure it's changed immensely since then. But it looks really interesting. So be sure to check that out. And the last show that we got, it's called Ninja Night, Thursdays at, I think it's at 7:30s. There's a local Ninja Warrior training facility here in Rochester. It's an obstacle park. And every week they have a local competition in which, all of the local people can come and they'll run through a course, and, just kind of giving them more of that training so that way they can get ready for either other local comps, or if they do get selected for the show. We actually got 6 people coming from that gym competing this year on American Ninja Warrior. That's pretty exciting. So if I can get some hypes in the chat, I'm super excited about that. I can't wait. That's 4 more than we've ever had come out of Rochester. And if you look at Western New York, if not upstate New York, we're the only gym that's actually sending people to the show this year. So, and Mr. Chris, who does our fitness show on Mondays, is actually one of the competitors. So be sure to check him out. We're going to be doing some reruns of that throughout the week. And it's a pretty good workout. He did a great job yesterday, and we're excited to see what else he can do. So, what are we doing here right now? Earl Grey and Real Estate. What's that? So, every Tuesday morning, first off, if you got your breakfast, if you got your tea, if you got your coffee, get it ready. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about real estate for the next hour or so. We're going to have some Q&As. I'm going to help you if I can. And you guys are probably wondering, who is this guy? All right, so I'm Bernard. I've been in commercial real estate about a decade. Yeah, just about 10 years, so it'll be 10 years this summer. Located up here in Rochester, New York. Most of my properties in Western New York. Yeah, there's the Earl Grey. It's right here. And I hope everybody else has the Earl Grey. I love it. I don't know. I always like seeing that meme with, Patrick Stewart. The cocaine, your life on cocaine, marijuana. And then you see him unaged, drinking Earl Grey for the last 40 years. I don't know. I'm a big nerd at heart. I used to love watching all the Star Trek stuff. But I keep digressing here. What are we here for? We're here for Earl Grey. We're here for real estate. I'm going to try to teach you guys as most as I can. As we go through this every week, we're going to have a different topic. We're going to talk about it. What I do, works for me, and I'm going to keep saying this to everybody. You got to find out what's going to work for you. You can take my advice. You can look at what I do. It may work for you. It may not. It works for me. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's wrong. That's just what works for me. You got to figure out what's going to work for you. So, yeah, Earl Grey hot. Exactly. I don't know who's going to order Earl Grey cold. That'd be an odd one. So, but every week we're gonna come in here. We're gonna talk about real estate. Hopefully, I'm gonna be able to teach you guys just a little bit here and there. Um, Towards the end of it, we're gonna go. This is gonna be over 8 weeks. Towards the end, we're actually gonna sit down and we're gonna look at a few properties together. I'm gonna post them. We're gonna vote on which ones we want to look at, and then we're gonna actually just go into an in-depth analysis of it, just like I would do if I was gonna go purchase a property. So that's gonna be a little bit later, probably towards the end of the season. We'll post up some different properties. You guys can vote on which ones you want to talk about. We'll sit there, we'll go through it all, and we'll decide on which one we want to go more in depth to, and be like, and I'll take you through the entire process, just as though I was going to purchase this. So we'll walk through the whole thing, and let's just get going. So Earl Grey and real estate. Commercial real estate is what we're most mainly going to be talking about. I don't really do any residential. I don't know. We just never part of our portfolio. I think one of the things for residential is you do need a little bit more overhead, a little bit more staff. And honestly, I don't want to be woken up at 2 in the morning because someone's toilet's overflowing. People are pretty gross. If you go to someone's house, like sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's not. Like they don't like to pick up as much. At a business, usually they do a lot better, so you don't have to worry about like bed bugs or I say you don't have to worry about bed bugs, but I have had to bomb one of my office spaces for bed bugs. It was ridiculous. It was a call center, which I don't think I'd ever. Yeah, all right, Chris. Yeah, I know you love real estate. Let's see how we can help you out. We're going to talk about it, but what was I saying? So, yeah, so I had an office tenant, call center. I'll never lease to a call center again. And they were like giving me reports like, hey, we got bed bugs in here. I'm like, what do you mean? How do you have bed bugs in an office? And they're like, oh, well, people like were cold, so they're bringing their blankets and this and that. I'm like, that's disgusting. Yeah, people are gross. It was disgusting. So I had to bomb it like multiple times. I had to come in there, have all the exterminators come in. It sucked. But it's like, how do you do that? Like, that's gross. Like, what are you doing? But, that's just one of the things that you have to deal with when you're a landlord and when you have to deal with all these different people. So, Earl Grey and real estate. This week's topic, we're just going to start real slow. We're going to get into this. So this week we're going to talk about the different types of property. So does anybody know what the 4 main different types of commercial real estate would be? Don't all jump out at once. All right, so the 4, 5, almost. The last one I don't always count, but the 4 types of properties are multifamily, retail, office, industrial, and the last one would kind of be land. So these are the 4, 5 if you count land types of commercial real estate. So for me, I don't really have any multifamily. Most of mine is going to be the other 3. I do have some land as well, but that's the thing about land. It's just land until you can figure out what you're going to do with it. So why don't we dive into the first one, multifamily. What is multifamily? So it's exactly what it sounds like. Anything that's going to have more than one family living in it. So it's not going to be your single family homes. It's usually going to be apartments, which can be duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. You can have townhouses. You can have the mixed use. I think a lot of us have seen that, where it'll be like a retail setting on the first floor. This is very common in larger cities. Then like the next floors are like a studio apartment or something else like that. You got like the bodega on the first floor, and then somebody else is like renting a few little houses or apartments above it. And then the last one would be just a big, huge like community apartment complex. We all know those. The big high rises or the spread out areas where they have a whole bunch of them. And the other type of multifamily besides apartments would be condos. And condos are a little bit different than apartments. Condos are owned. So when an apartment, you'll lease that. You go in there, you do your year lease, you pay every month. There you go. You're leasing it, you're renting it. After the term's over, you get out. The other one would be the condominiums, and that's when you purchase it. So they will create like a whole block of like 10, 15, 20, even more or they'll actually convert a lot of times apartments to condos, and then you'll purchase them, and then there'll be homeowners association fees that you have to pay on a monthly basis. It's actually I see a lot of people doing that now, and especially because of the way some of the taxes and some of the laws have changed. So they'll set it up to be apartments first, and I think the holding period's maybe like 2 to 3 years or so, and then after that initial holding period, then you can actually convert those apartments over to condos, and then they kind of like double dip in a sense. So they'll get that income initially from all the apartments. They'll be able to use that to pay down their debt service, and then after that holding period that they're required to do, then they'll flip it over to condos and start selling those out. So I don't do a lot of multifamily. In the past we have had a little bit here and there, but once again, like you need a lot more staff. There's a lot of overhead, and that's like one of the things that you want to look at and see. It's how can you get your bottom line stronger, and how can you get more income coming? And it's done by two different ways. It's going to be done by either increasing revenue, rent, any type of monies that are coming in, or it's going to be by reducing expenses. And one of those ways to reduce expenses is to keep your overhead in check. Do you really need a staff of 30 people? Can you get by with 10 instead, or 15? Those are the things that you're going to have to figure out. Initially it might just be you by yourself out there looking for houses, looking for apartments, all sorts of other things, and just kind of like diving into it and figuring out what works for you. But then all of a sudden, in a few years, after you got a few properties, you could have like a staff of 15, 20, 30 people. When I first came back and started working in this company, it was probably double what I had for staff-wise. And then after about like 4 or 5 months, we cut it in half. We let a few people go, and it was funny. You get half as many people. Oh, what's going on with the light in here? Half as many people, but the same work still gets done. So just give me 1 sec. For some reason, the stupid auto lights just went off. All right. I think we need to get some secondary lighting in here. That'll help a little bit more. But a lot of people have used multifamilies to really start creating their portfolio, and it's a really easy way to get into real estate because the cost of acquisition isn't crazy. So I know a lot of people, when they first want to get into real estate, they're like, how do I get into real estate? How can I do this? And there's a big barrier to entry to real estate, and it really is capital. And you'll look at these properties and you're like, oh man, this looks awesome, but it's like $1 million. Like, how am I going to come up with that? Then you can go look at a few houses. You can find a house that's like 50 grand, and that's more affordable to people who want to get into this industry. Hey Aqua, what's going on? So thanks for joining us. Welcome to Earl Grey and Real Estate. Every Tuesday morning we're going to be talking about real estate. We're just getting started. Talk about the different types of real estate today, and right now we're on multifamily. So the same rules do apply for multifamily and commercial. They are very similar in the way that they operate. It's going to be, multifamily and the rest of the commercial are pretty much the same. It's just when you think about single family homes, that's when it's really residential by itself. But all the rules are gonna apply. You're gonna do like your same type of due diligence. You're gonna do your same type of lending practices. All that's gonna be the same for the most part. It's just how much overheads are going to be associated with certain things. If you look at multifamily where people are renting, and especially in larger cities, you're going to be paying brokerage commissions pretty much every year. So, whereas opposed to a commercial where if you do a lease with like a longer term tenant, it'll be like once every 5 years. So there's definitely a lot more rollover in multifamily. And I don't know, a lot of people like it. It's just I've never got into it. I was lucky enough to be third generation in this industry. I never really wanted to come home and do this. I wanted to be like a starving artist, blowing glass, and doing other really cool sculptural things. And then I realized that I like to eat food, and to eat food you kind of need money. So eventually I came home, started working with my dad at the time, and worked with him all the way up until last year. He passed away, and I've been running the company day-to-day operations for a few years, and then after that it was just kind of me doing the whole thing. it was one of those like little epiphany moments of like, all right, let's go. It's just me now, and you got people depending on you. I got employees, they got families, everyone's got to make payroll. That's always the biggest thing that I was always taught is you got to make payroll. You got to make that. You got to take care of the people who take care of you. Let's see. Find partners or investors for large properties. 100% or 0 is 0. So I have a few partners. I don't do a ton of partners. We'll talk about that kind of more like in the future. Sometimes it's hard. You do need money to eat food. It's true. And you need money to eat food. You need money to take care of everything else. And no work, no eat. We always had the saying growing up. There's a local grocery store, Wegmans. I don't know if people in the chat have heard of it, but it's awesome. Best grocery store in the world. Sorry, Publix. I don't mean to diss on you, but Wegmans is where it's at. And it was always like, all right, well, we can go to Wegmans this week. Meaning that at least we made some money that we can go to Wegmans. So, multifamily, we can talk about that a little bit more in the future. I think I'll probably bring a guest in that does a little bit more multifamily than myself, so that way they can, go more in depth. That's one of the things I really do want to do is bring some guests on here, so people who are more knowledgeable in certain aspects of the industry can really sit there and give you guys better explanations than I am. Yeah, no, that's true, DJ. You don't lose all your tenants in one company going bankrupt. But once again, like I know a guy who has a very large multifamily apartment complex here in town. But one of the things that he was telling me about is that the cost of his tenants every time they go out is crazy. Because some of them, they'll have to, rip out the full rugs, the walls. There's a lot that has to get done to bring that apartment back into rentable shape. Because, sometimes when they move out, you guys know how it is. They're like gross. If it was a bad week, you go to Tops. Yeah. I like that. National tenants. Yeah, Stoke, you're right, man. So let's go. That's a great segue. So the next one would be retail. So we all know what retail is. You're driving down the street, you see something over here, you want to stop, you want to get it. Those strong national tenants. Retail has changed. It's crazy now compared to where it was maybe like 5-6 years ago. It's completely different. It's scary. A lot of I've actually shifted a bunch of my portfolio away from retail just because of we constantly see, oh, this guy's going bankrupt this week, this guy's going bankrupt next week. It's scary. I'm very happy I don't have some of those big box centers right now, because those guys are gonna be in trouble in the next few years. So why don't we talk about the different types of retail? So there's a pad site. So when you have a pad site, you have a ground lease. You guys will see those. You'll be driving by. It's one building by itself, and it's got one tenant in there, long term usually. Pad sites, ground leases are awesome. You'll have some land. You either build them the building, or they'll build it themselves. They pay you rent. You don't have to do anything. Ground leases are awesome, actually. All you're doing is a lot of times they'll build the building, they'll take care of everything, they'll take care of all the maintenance, take care of all the landscaping, and you just sit there and collect rent every month. The other type would be a dual single tenant building. It's very similar to the ground lease pad sites. You can see over in this picture up here. There's let's see what is in there. There's a battery bulb, there's a US Cellular, and there's like a dental care. So that'd be like a dual single tenant building where you'll have usually multiple national tenants, going off of what Stoke was just talking about. And those are usually going to be long-term leases, hopefully at least 10 to 15 years, and they're going to be credit-worthy tenants. And that's going to be something that we're going to talk about a little bit more, the difference between credit-worthy and non-credit-worthy, and how it really helps, I guess, your bottom line and your financing. Because that's going to be a big thing that we're going to talk about probably in future episodes, is financing, how to get financing, what you should be looking for, what you should be getting. We're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about, it's called LTV, loan to value. We're going to talk about, interest rates, all that type of things that are associated because it's not about what we're making, it's about what's going to be there at the end of our bottom line. So if you're making 100,000 a year in gross revenue, but your expenses are 90,000, and you're only walking away with 10 after your annual debt service, I don't know, is that something that you really want to invest all your time and efforts in? It's going to be something that you're going to have to think about. We're going to think about when we go through that exercise at the end of the season. That's going to be one of the things that we're going to evaluate. What's our internal rate of return? What's our cap rate? These are all, I know I'm throwing a whole bunch of words at you guys. I'm sure some of you guys know what these are, some don't. But as the series goes on, we are going to explain everything. So, hopefully this will give you a little bit more knowledge about real estate. Once again, it works for me. It might not work for you. You got to figure out what works for you. And that's going to be the biggest thing. That's what I always tell people is what works for one person might not work for someone else. Take bits and pieces and come up with your own strategy for real estate. And that's the most important part. So the next type of retail would be neighborhood shopping centers. These will be, small little mom and pops. There's not going to be a lot of credit tenant there. So Stoke, when you're talking about those national tenants, a lot of the times you won't have these. I got one of these. It's about 8 tenant spaces in there, and not a single one is credit worthy. It's pretty frustrating, actually. Let's see, am I getting some dropped frames here? All right, I think we're back now. A little frustrating. Let's see. Is it frozen? All right, I think it's coming back up. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this. It's a new rig here, but we'll take a look at it and see if we can get everything else working for you. So the next thing would be power centers. These power centers are going to be those big box retails. They're going to be your Anchored, your grocery stores. There's going to be a whole bunch of things just like that. So, that's going back to, once again, Stokes' thing about national tenants. That's going to be all the different, Best Buy, Petco, all this type of things. What's whose name? My name? My name's Bernard, not Earl. Earl Grey is the T, right? Oh man, Earl Grey is getting a little cold. I might have to go warm this up in a second. So, but yeah, those big box ones, those are those ones that we were talking about that are going to be getting in a lot of trouble probably in the near future, because we constantly hear all these different news reports about, this is Toys R Us is closing, Bonton's closing, this is closing, that's closing, and it's really given a lot of these malls and these big box center people a lot of issues. They really don't know what they're going to do now, and they're looking for new tenants to kind of come in there, and retail's changed so much. It's no longer about, okay, here's this, we're going to go take a look at this. Now it's going to be, what experiences can we bring into our plaza that's going to bring, customers in here? Because everyone ships things online. Like, I don't know, I get 1 million boxes from Amazon at my house. I'm sure everybody else does too. We don't really go out there and really shop anymore, I feel like, for the most part. I did not get to watch Westworld just yet. Please don't give me any spoilers. I watched episode 1. I didn't watch the second episode yet. I was up last night, getting ready for the stream, and we just launched this week, or we're just watching all of our shows this week. So there's been a lot of things going on, and besides doing this, I still got to do my regular job too. So. It's true. Yeah, Stoke, that's definitely true, is that if you can play the trends, you can make those big boxes vacancies work. You may be able to get in there and get some fire sale deals too. I was sitting with a banker maybe like 3 weeks ago, and he was talking to me about financing, and I think he was doing non-recourse lending, which we'll get into that later on when we talk about lending. And one of the things that he said is that there was a guy who had a big box plaza. It had I think it had a giant supermarket in there that was a little bit like maybe like 60,000 square feet, so larger than it was supposed to be. Then it had like three other big box centers, and the guy wanted to mortgage 50% of it, and the broker was like, I can't do it. He's like, I know that in like 5 years, most of those tenants are not even going to be in there anymore. So he wouldn't do it. And he knew this guy was trying to get cash out. Where 6, 7 years ago, that plaza, that shopping center would have been like a cherry on the top. It would have been right there for everybody. He would have been able to finance it. But now it's changed so much. It's completely different. Retail's scary. And I have shifted a lot of my portfolio away from retail and looking for other opportunities, kind of like what Stoke was just talking about in chat, because there are other opportunities there. I think if we can watch the trends and seeing what's happening, it's really going to help us to understand where we can get that value add. That's one of the things that I always look for, is the value add of a property. I had an epiphany moment, last summer. I was looking at a deal. It was awesome. It was going to be like a 10-year like sale leaseback. I don't know if people know what sale leaseback is, but sale leaseback is when somebody will own the building and they want to sell it, and then at closing, that individual who's a tenant of the building that owns it will enter into a lease agreement. So you're basically buying a building with a lease in place, and usually it's going to be like a longer term lease, hopefully. And the property I was looking at, it was a cool little industrial building, I think like 30,000 square feet. It was going to be a sale leaseback, and the guy was going to do like a 10-year lease. And I was sitting there, deal looked good, going to get a good rate of return, and I had this moment. I was sitting there, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is good, but it's not fulfilling for me. It's not fun for me. It's not like hitting those creative juices and vibes that I want. So I kind of killed that deal, and then I talked to my staff, and I'm like, we're going to refocus, and we're going to go start doing more development. We're going to start doing more redevelopment and a little bit less of investments, because I feel like there could be more value add if you look towards those development and redevelopment properties. And that's going to be something that we're going to really talk about probably next episode, is a different type of real estate professionals, and that's going to be a little bit more. So my Earl Grey is getting a little cold. I'm going to throw over a little promo real quick while I warm this up, and then I'll be right back in about 1 minute.
Every Monday at noon, you'll see Mr. Chris, Fitness with Mr. Chris. All right, here we go. This is where you get shaky arms, and you gotta just picture you're on a happy place, a nice beach, sipping Coronas. This is an assisted one-arm pull-up. So I'm gonna jump up. The higher that I hold up on this band, the easier and more assistance it does. The lower, much harder, because you see it stretches much more, whereas if I'm grabbing it up at the top. So. Oh, that one gets your heart going. That one gets your heart going. That one gets your heart going. Oh. Fitness with Mr. Chris, Mondays at noon.
Filthy Casual brings you the content creators you love talking about the formats you love to play. Commander, Cube, Two-Headed Giant, Brawl, and more. Wednesday nights 8, you don't want to miss it.
All right, we're back. Sorry, I just had to warm this up. Can't drink that Earl Grey cold, right? Earl Grey hot. So, but yeah, one of those things. Retail, it's crazy. It's a whole new different thing. Probably gonna bring in some different people on this as well. I think DJ. I think I know who that is. Hopefully, maybe you'll come in. We can talk about that one of these future episodes. Pretty exciting stuff. Next type of property would be office buildings. These come in a few different classifications and a few different types. There's the single tenant, just freestanding, similar to the pad site, the other type of thing that we spoke about. There's the office buildings that we all see in large big cities, multiple stores going all the way up. And then there is office parks. So this will be a bunch of little buildings all together that will come together to create a larger office park setting. And then these offices kind of broken down into three classifications: Class A, Class B, Class C. And they're all different. It basically goes down to the quality of the office. If you're going to be in an awesome office building, brand new, finishes, look awesome, everything, it's just redone, that's going to be pretty much, Class A. Class B could be something a little bit, maybe a few years older. And then C is just like that grimy, office that you don't really bring a lot of tenants into. Excuse me, not tenants, a lot of customers into. But you just need some place to go. You don't care about rent. You don't care about where it is in the city. You just want something that you can go to. So. Yeah, Stoke. That's the thing. You can sit there and read as much as you want, but experience and just getting out there and learning it is so important. That's like really how I learned so much of I guess my knowledge. I don't know how good it is. It does okay some days. Other days it doesn't do that well. But it's just getting out there and just if you can find somebody that you could shadow, that you could intern with, I think that'd be a really good thing to do. So it's important. I brought on an intern and he's doing a really good job. I spent 7 years like shadowing, basically like my dad, learning the industry, and it was probably the best education I got. I made a lot of mistakes. And he would tell me every single day when I would make a mistake, and some of them would not be cheap, but that's just, part of the learning process. So office buildings, many different types of classifications. There's so much variety of them. This is one of the areas that we are starting to shift our portfolio over to a little bit more. There's a lot of opportunities. One of the things that I've noticed in recently in office space is that it's changed a little bit in the sense of it's not as traditional as it used to be. We've seen the drop ceilings in there, all the standard like lighting and this and that. And what we've started to see more of now is that like reclaimed industrial look, where people won't have drop ceilings. They'll like spray paint it black. They'll blow everything out. Nice open concept, all those type of things. And by doing that, it's really, I guess, engaged a new generation. It's a little bit different than the traditional office space, what you would normally see. And I like it. I'm actually in the process of doing a renovation right now. We're going to go over to that space after the live stream, actually. On Tuesday mornings, I do my weekly construction meetings for that property. We walk through. I do a little video. We throw it up on IG. Maybe we'll live stream us going over there and doing the walkthrough today if you guys want to see that too. Just let me know. So that's one of the things that we've done over there. It was actually an industrial building, which we're going to talk about next. And we split it up into multiple tenant spaces. And that front space, it's about, I think, 6,500 square feet. We blew it all open. So that way it's this big, huge open concept. We added a cool conference room in there. We added a bunch of new windows. We took out the ceiling grid. We spray painted everything black. It looks really cool right now. I'm super excited about it. And then we also, added some landscaping on the outside. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people are noticing, that some of these newer companies don't necessarily want to be in those traditional office parks that we were just talking about. I think they can get a little stuffy here and there. And I don't know, people want a few things. They want a great location, they want amenities around there, and they want cool space. And if you can provide all of those things to a tenant and their employees, they're going to be happy about it. This property that we're renovating right now, it's in a great location. It's right next to a highway, and it's got a ton of restaurants and other amenities in the surrounding area. And to add on to that, we're making a little outdoor seating area for the employees. We're getting like really cool picnic benches, umbrellas, all that type of stuff to make that like a really nice engaging space, so that way they can have that outdoor space as well as that indoor space for their employees to enjoy. So that's definitely a trend, kind of going off of what we were talking about previously of identifying those trends and how we can adjust to them. So looking for opportunities like this where we can see other, um, let's see, where we can see opportunities and take value, get that value add from properties that wouldn't normally be used for this type of office use, and converting them over, I think really makes a huge difference in the market. Yes, Carl Fan, every Tuesday, 8:30 for the next 7 weeks. Thanks for jumping on. Carl Fan is doing a great job here at Quest House as well. He's, you know, in charge of this whole operation, and I don't think we'd be where we are without him, and it's very exciting to see some of the new programming coming up. So besides office, the next big one would be industrial. Kind of just touched on that a little bit. The different types of industrial would be warehouse, which would just be exactly what you guys are thinking of. It's just a big, wide open warehouse, either from type of distribution or any other type of light manufacturing, regular manufacturing, usually high bay. It's another thing that we're going to talk about. The other type of real estate is going to be flex space. So flex would be a percentage of the warehouse is dedicated to office. Traditionally it'll be like 10 to 20% of the space will be office. The remaining space will be warehouse. So that way, if you have a company where you do need some office space, you put that up in front, and then you have like your workers, you got your, manufacturing, whatever else in the back of that warehouse. A lot of the space that you'll see is flex. I think there's a large percentage of the industrial space being flex versus just straight warehouse. I don't see too much warehouse as much. It's really a lot of flex, unless there is somebody who just needs a warehouse for storage or anything else along those lines. There's also R&D. So that's another thing that I'm seeing, like a resurgence, and how we can adapt to the changing real estate market is, I got, it was a flex space, and we rehabbed it for a tenant. Unfortunately, they ended up going out of business because they were a startup, and some startups don't do so well, and then they're just, way of the dodo, and they're out of here. But what we had done for them is we'd actually taken their warehouse space and converted it into lab space for them. And by converting it into lab space, what we had done is we actually put a drop ceiling into the warehouse. We gave them air conditioning in there, tons of plugs. They did still have the different types of grade and recessed truck dock doors so they could bring in some of their materials, but it really became less warehousey and more like R&D lab space, which at the time we were excited about it because we had a tenant, we were putting all this money in there, we were hoping that it was going to work out. But now it's going to be, it's a little bit of a challenge, I would say, because it's so specialized and we put so much money into that space that I don't want to tear it all out and redo it because it's so nice now. There's like an epoxy floor, there's like awesome lighting, it's all the LED in there. It's not warehouse space anymore. It's a little frustrating because if it was straight warehouse, it'd probably be a little easier to rent out. But because it is this specialized use now, I think we will be able to get like a little bit higher rental rates on there. So the other type of industrial would be distribution. We all know about these. You'll have FedEx. You'll have Staples. Like anybody who needs to deliver material to their customers will have some type of distribution hub. And these come in all different sizes. I'm sure we all heard about like Amazon, like their HQ2 that all the cities in the United States and Canada were trying to bid for, so that way they could have a big, huge distribution center. And I think personally that we're going to see more things like that. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but that's kind of where I'm seeing the trend is that there's going to be, we're with this next generation, this millennial generation, which I'm technically part of, one of the things that I think gets lost is how entrepreneurial so many millennials want to be. And entrepreneurialness breeds these different type of industries. And by creating these different types of industries, whether it's like a new tech startup or some type of new widget that they want to create, they're going to need some more of these smaller flex distribution, light assembly spaces. And I don't think they mind being in like a little bit cooler, like grimier space that they can get for a good price, and in which they can use that space to create whatever they want for their new startup. I've been in I do a good amount of startups as well, besides my commercial real estate, and I've seen a lot of these spaces, and a lot of them are in this class B office like we were talking about, or industrial space, that they can just sit there and just kind of grind through all of their work and see what they can get going. The other things that you guys want to know about for industrial space is going to be clear height. It's always important. So how much clearance you do get in the space. So it's usually going to range anywhere from 14 to 24 feet. I've seen some spaces 30 feet, but it's not as traditional. Most of the time it's going to be like 18 to 24, somewhere in that range. And I think, getting closer to that 21, 24 is really where you want to be if you're looking for properties. And the reason for that is for pallet stacking. So if you can go up to 20, I think it's 21, 24, you can get 3 stacks of pallets. So that means that you can utilize your vertical storage more effectively within that space. So a tenant that's looking at a space that has that extra clear, they can be like, oh, we can get by 10,000 square feet, as opposed to down the street where it's only a 18 clear, we would need 15,000 square feet. So those are the things that you want to look at. And then also with that clearance, then some people need cranes. Some people need, other machinery that's going to need it. I had a tenant who, well, I still have a tenant, let's hope they don't leave, who does, what do they do? They do silicon growing for wafers for solar panels to test them. And they have this giant furnace. It's awesome. But we had to extend the roof. We actually had to like cut out a section of the roof and raise it up because it was they needed 30-foot clear. So we brought it all the way up there, and it's crazy. You walk in there, it looks like a freaking spaceship. It's like SpaceX over there. They're gonna blast off and do all this crazy stuff. So what is the average height of a pallet? I'd have to double check that. I would say probably 8 feet, give or take. Then you want a little bit of clearance over there so that way you can lift it off and drop it down. I think that's about right. Look at if you go to Home Depot, like look at how they have things stacked up there, and they can kind of give you like a good idea of what the different heights are. But I know a lot of people who've done industrial space at like 18 clear and have done awesome. I think 18 is really that like magical number that you need that as a minimum to really be effective in getting a different, I guess not different, just a larger pool of potential tenants. One of the things you can do, I haven't done it yet. I keep wanting to do it. Is that there's a company that I've spoken with numerous times out of Toronto, Ontario, and it's called Roof Lifters. And what they'll actually do is that if you have a building that you need the roof raised, they'll come along, they'll cut along the whole perimeter of the building. They'll come in there with these giant hydraulic lifts, and they slowly move up the whole roof like inch by inch. And they can give you as much clearance as you need. And then they'll go around the outside of the perimeter of the building and then panel it or do whatever type of siding that you want. If you can get a building for like a really good price, that could be an interesting way to get that value add, Stoke, of, here's a building, it's awesome, it's only like 16 feet. But if I can raise this roof, now all of a sudden I've increased my potential tenants pool by, 10, 20, whatever percent by getting that extra, 6 to 8 clearance. And the last thing that's important for industrial spaces is going to be dock space. So there's 2 types of docks. There's grade level docks. So when I talk about docks, I'm talking about big truck doors. So that way, grade level is going to be at grade, so someone could just drive a truck into the space. And then the other one's going to be recessed, where it's like tractor trailers, so that way they can back up, unload, bring whatever else needs to be in the space. So that's all going to be, that's going to be a variable. It's really going to be dependent on what your tenant needs. If you can provide a tenant with a grade level truck dock door and a recessed one, at least one of each, I think that really helps giving you an advantage in the market compared to somebody else who only has one of the other two. Most of the time they're gonna want a recess if they're getting deliveries. The grade I think is extremely useful. Anybody who wants to bring things in, a grade door is awesome. I know even some retailers want grade doors sometimes, so that way when they get big shipments or supplies or have to bring things in and out of their spaces, they can do that more easily than having to deal with like a double door and then a vestibule and all this other type of stuff. And recently, going off of those trends of real estate, of kind of adapting to what's going on in real estate and what we can do to stay ahead of the curve, I think industrial is becoming more and more of a player within the commercial real estate market. I've actually started to shift my portfolio a little bit more towards industrial. I think that it hits 2 points for me. The first one is critical mass. That's one of the things that I was always taught, and the ones that I believe in is that if you have critical mass, you can, one, it'll be a little bit easier to manage because first off, industrial, it doesn't have to be as pretty, it doesn't have to be as nice as retail where you have to throw like a lot of cash at making sure your landscaping looks good and all those other type of things. Whereas in industrial, if you have 100,000 square feet and you're getting three bucks a square foot, that's 300 grand a year. Compared to a little like mom and pop center where you have got to like work your ass off and get like 6 tenants in there to make maybe like a quarter of that. Granted, with these bigger spaces, if you lose that tenant, you're like SOL, right? But there are some advantages of having vacant space. We'll talk about that probably in another episode. Maybe I can bring in like one of these tax experts to kind of sit down and talk a little bit more into that. Because real estate's cool in the sense that when you're losing money and you have losses, you could actually use that to offset your income. So your taxes sometimes, or your income can even be negative some years because you've had such a loss in other years that you can then carry that over into future years. It's one of those valuable parts of real estate that I think doesn't always get explained properly. I know it a little bit. That's why I want to bring somebody else that can explain it more in depth and can really answer a lot of the questions that you're going to have. Just because I could answer them, but it's not going to be the level that I want to provide to you guys. I want to be able to have you give the back and forth and talk with an industry professional who can really give you a clearer definition of what the advantages are in real estate and how you can apply those to your tax benefits. The next one would just be raw land. This is just land all over the place. It's ripe for development opportunities. Land's tough. There's a lot of costs associated with land that you don't always think about. We found this out is that I got a few hundred acres of property of land, not too far from here, and I really wanted to redevelop it. And I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's start spending cash and figuring out what we need to do to redevelop this property. And we went through the whole process. We went to, we had all of our engineers working with all the local different companies for gas, for electric, for water, for sewer, just so we could figure out what we have on the site and what we can bring into that site and the costs associated with it. And we sat down with our engineers and they were going through this all, and they were like, okay, here's this, that's good, here's this, that's good. They're saying all these awesome things, and we're getting all hyped up and we're like ready to go. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, so here's the issue. And we're like, all right, what? And they're like, the electric. It's like a quarter mile down the road. I was like, all right, yeah, no problem. Quarter mile, just throw some poles, bring electric into the property. We'll be good to go. And they're like, well, it costs like this or that. And I'm like, wait, what? Say it again. And they're like, yeah, it's going to be like $1.5 million to bring electric to this property. My jaw like dropped to the ground. I feel like it almost like shattered by hitting the table. It was just like, how could I develop this property with that type of investment with not even building anything? That's just for getting electricity to the property. And it's like just a quarter mile down the road. Like, it was crazy. It was mind-blowing to me. So unfortunately, that's kind of sitting on the back burner for now. Maybe one day something will happen with it. But another example is putting another piece of property under contract right now. It's just raw land. But what we're going to do is we're going to build, going back to that retail section that we talked about earlier, we're going to build 2 tenant buildings there, side by side. Both are going to be national tenants. We're going to build them there, put the tenants in there. We'll probably end up flipping it eventually just because there's some better value there long term by flipping it as opposed to holding on to it. Then we can just reinvest that and keep doing that type of thing, looking for land, looking for opportunities, working with these national tenants and really kind of getting ingrained in their development system and creating more opportunities that way. So that's kind of it for the main types of commercial property. So going back to what we talked about, so there's multifamily, there's retail, there's office, industrial, and land. There's a few other things in there too. We didn't really touch base on them. There's senior living facilities. There's other types of, I guess, there's amusement, there's hotels, there's all sorts of other things like that. It's not really any of my forte, and they're so specialized that I don't know if they're worth going too in depth in. Maybe we'll have like a special episode where we bring in a like a hotel individual or somebody else who has more experience in those. So we got a few more minutes, and let's just open it up to any Q&As. If anybody does have any questions, we can take some time and talk about those right now. Ew, old people. It's funny. There's such a push for senior living right now because of all the baby boomers are hitting that age bracket, and everywhere I see, it's like these different senior livings expanding or adding new buildings, just getting ready for this, or people who haven't been in that industry are now getting into it, and because they see all these baby boomers there and the potential capital associated with them. But it's going to be really interesting in like 20 years when all those baby boomers die, and then they're going to have to figure out what to do with all this new property that was just added to the market. I'm sure a lot of it's going to get converted over to apartments or condos or something along those lines, but it could be putting people in a lot of trouble too. If were banking on this in a longer term investment than that, 10, 15 years. And I'm also nervous that it's going to like oversaturate the market. I know directly across the street from like my office here, there used to be like this mixed use like retail office, and they're tearing it down, and they're going to do like 3-story, senior living facility type of thing, and it's going to be okay for now. But once again, like in that 10, 15 years, 20 years, like what are they going to do? Like, is there going to be enough people that are going to absorb all that space as apartments? I know that the younger generation is not having as many kids, or they're having children later in life. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think a lot of people are going to be pressed. And so we got a couple more minutes. Any other questions people want to talk about right now, if in regards to the different types of property or anything else that we can talk about for real estate? Oh, I'm almost out of Earl Grey. It's all right. Lasted pretty much the whole time. All right. So, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. So we're going to be doing this every Tuesday for the next 7 more weeks after this. And each week we're going to talk about a different type of real estate topic. Next week we're going to be talking about the different types of real estate professionals and property management, what that involves, what goes into that. I do a lot of property management. I do my own property management. I am a certified CPM, so certified property manager. I think going back to that book smart, not book smart, but book reading stoke. If you have the opportunity, I would look into IREM. It's a real estate organization, and they have some really interesting classes. I did a lot of those right when I got into the industry. I did those and CCIM, and I think by doing those two, they really helped catapult me into the real estate, and I learned a lot from those. What's my favorite type of real estate? I think right now it's probably industrial. That's where I'm kind of doing a little bit more focus, kind of making sure that my portfolio is spread out a little bit more than it has been in the past. We're looking for new opportunities for growth potential. One of the things that we are expanding into, we've been working on it for the last like year or so, is we're trying to get into the Canadian market. It's one of those things that I feel like you want to sit down and come up with goals and what you want to accomplish within your real estate career. And one of those goals that I've always wanted to do is um, go international. And I know it's Canada, and it's not like crazy international, but it is different. And there's a lot of other laws, and there's a lot that you have to learn. And it's funny to think of like yourself as a foreign buyer, but when you go up there, you are a foreigner technically, and I see a lot of value add up there. We could talk about that a little bit more in the future, but one of the things that I see for Canada is the currency play, in the sense that if you look at the Canadian dollar versus the U.S., there's about a 20% difference right now, give or take. It goes up and down. I watch the currency market pretty much every day just to kind of see like where it's at, and it hovers somewhere between like 75 cents to 80 cents on the dollar, give or take. And when you look at that opportunity, that is, if you can buy a property now with that discount, and historically every 5 to 10 years, it kind of balances out to be about on par with the dollar, and then you sell at that point, then all of a sudden you got an additional 20% gain that you would not have gotten anywhere else. So there are some troubles with this, once again, because it is a little bit different. We've spent a lot of time up in Canada. We probably go up there like once a month. I'm actually going back up there on the 16th to look at a few properties. We're getting really close to getting our first acquisition. I'm hoping that's going to happen probably in the next, oh God, hopefully 2 to 3 months. But it's exciting. Do I own any showpiece properties? Ones that may not make as much money but look good in the portfolio. Yeah, I do. I got one property that I like a lot. It's retail. It is like kind of like a neighborhood shopping center, and at this point, it's done pretty well. Wasn't doing awesome at first. It's taken us years to kind of get where we wanted for that, but right now it's great. I got a bank in there. I got a Panera Bread. I got a national dry cleaner, and now dry cleaners are scary, but this one's an all green operation, so it doesn't actually have any harmful chemicals, and it's not going to cause any phase one environmental issues. And that's something that we'll talk about in a future episode, is doing environmental reports and everything else that's going to be associated with when you want to purchase a property. What items do you have to do for your due diligence? So we'll go through all that in a future episode. But yeah, so this one has the dry cleaner. It's got like a supercut. I just built an urgent care there. Urgent cares are like popping off, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to do more of right now, is getting ingrained with some of these urgent care individuals and be like a developer for them to create these new urgent cares, because they are trading at like a very low cap rate, which we'll talk about that in the future too. And cap rate's basically what people are putting a value on, and that goes off against like off of rent and and the credit worthy of the tenant. I think Stoke, you brought that up previously. These national tenants, they're going to have a higher value because hopefully they're not going to go bankrupt. So it's got a bunch of those. It was actually a really fun project. We just finished it about 2 months ago. What we had done is that it was a traditional strip center, and I had a couple out parcels, and we're sitting there like not leasing it up, and like, how are we going to fix this? What are we going to do? Retail's not what it used to be. It's people. Everybody wants those freestanding single tenant buildings now. So what we ended up doing is that we had about 3,000 square feet vacant, and I was like, you know what? Why don't we just chop it out? So we did that. We had people come in. We had our contractors, and we literally cut the building in half, cut out 3,000 square feet. Rewalled it, made that section into a parking lot. And then in the front parking lot, we built a freestanding single tenant building, and that's where the urgent care went. So that's kind of become like our showpiece of my portfolio. I wouldn't really want to sell it, but once again, everything's for sale for the right price. And it's I don't know. When I first started in the industry, I was all hyped up about, let's do retail. Like, it's so sexy. You get to like drive down the street and be like, oh, look, that Panera, that's mine. That's sexy. That's cool. And then as I've like aged and gotten more into this industry, that like sexiness has kind of fallen off a little bit. and I'd rather get that value add and that income and that capital coming into the company, as opposed to having that, like, oh, look at this property on Main and Main, it's like awesome, it's so sexy, it's so cool. Whereas, like, oh, like, there's this industrial building that nobody knows about, but it's giving me like an awesome return, and I don't have to deal with anything else associated with it. That was like one of those things that I kind of had to grow into over the years and really figure out what worked for me. It's one of those things that I keep talking about this, and I'm going to talk about throughout the whole series, is you have to figure out what's going to work for you. You know, what works for me, what works for this guy, what works for this guy. You know, it may work for all of us. It might not be right. It might not be wrong. It works for us. You got to figure out what works for you. And you can take, you know, knowledge that you learn from everybody else and create this thing for you. More money, more problems. But you're right. You're right. So, yeah, so that's the stream for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to do this every Tuesday morning for the next few weeks. I think we're going to have some reruns as well. Normally, after this show, there's going to be a rerun of Filthy Casual, which is going to be airing tomorrow. So next week after this episode, that'll air, do a rerun of that. Filthy Casual is a Magic the Gathering show in which they sit down and do in-depth analysis of different shows. If you want to follow us on Instagram, my Instagram is Birnbaum Companies. So follow us on Instagram. I do pretty much daily pictures and updates of the different properties that we have. We're actually going to be going over to our construction meeting right after this. If you guys want, we can live stream that so you can kind of see what's going on at that as well. We'll do a little bit of live stream to our walkthrough so you guys can see that. So hit us up on Instagram. Once again, thank you for watching, and we are excited that you guys are able to join us for Quest House, and we will have more programming in the future. So thanks for coming. Talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.
Every Monday at noon, you'll see Mr. Chris. Fitness with Mr. Chris. All right, here we go. This is where you get shaky arms, and you gotta just picture you're on a happy place, nice beach, sipping Coronas. This is an assisted one-arm pull-up. So I'm gonna jump up. The higher that I hold up on this band, the easier and more assistance it does. The lower, much harder, because you see it stretches much more, whereas if I'm grabbing it up at the top. So. Oh, that one gets your heart going. That one gets your heart going. That one gets your heart going. Oh. Woo. Fitness with Mr. Chris, Mondays at noon.
Filthy Casual brings you the content creators you love talking about the formats you love to play. Commander, Cube, Two-Headed Giant, Brawl, and more. Wednesday nights at 8, you don't want to miss it.